The silence that fell over the earth was not the silence of peace. It was the heavy, suffocating silence of a jury reading a death warrant. Above the planet, the sky shattered. Not from explosions, but from the sheer weight of reality bending. Massive ships, shaped like perfect geometric teardrops and glowing with a cold, blue light, appeared in the high atmosphere. They did not move like machines, they glided like water. They were the fleet of the Galactic Council, the rulers of 1,000 stars. They had come to Earth with a message. It was not a message of war, but something much worse. It was a message of rejection. Commander Mark stood on the bridge of the Ares, the largest military space station still under human control. He watched the alien ships on the main screen. His face was hard, like stone. He had seen aliens before. He had fought them. He had killed them. But this was different. These aliens were not here to shoot. They were here to talk, and that terrified him more than any laser beam. The communications officer, a young woman named Lisa, looked at him with fear in her eyes. "Sir," Lisa said, her voice shaking. "They are hailing us. It is a channel for all leaders, military and civilian." Mark nodded slowly. "Put it on the screen, Lisa. Let us hear what they have to say." The screen flickered and changed. The face of an alien appeared. It had pale, gray skin and large, black eyes that seemed to look right through Mark. The alien did not open its mouth to speak, but a voice filled the bridge. It sounded like metal grinding against glass. "Creatures of Earth," the voice began. "The Galactic Council has reached a decision. You have been observed for many cycles. Your species is chaotic. You destroy your own environment. You fight amongst yourselves without reason. You possess a drive that disrupts the harmony of the galaxy. You are a virus in a healthy body. Therefore, the Council has voted. Earth is banished." Mark clenched his fists. "Banished," he whispered. "You have exactly 1 solar week," the alien continued. "You must leave this star system. You may take your ships and your people. But you are forbidden to return. You are forbidden to interact with any Council species. You will be sent to the Dead Zone, a region of empty space at the edge of the galaxy. If you refuse, we will sterilize this planet. The choice is yours. Live in exile, or die here." The screen went black. The bridge was silent. Everyone waited for Mark to yell, to order an attack, to do something. But Mark just looked at the black screen. He looked at the reports coming in from the surface. The alien ships were not firing. They were just waiting. "Do they think we will just leave?" a young officer named Tom asked. "Commander, we can fight. We have the nukes. We have the railguns." Mark turned to look at Tom. "And then what?" Tom looked at them. "Their ships block out the sun. If we fight, they turn Earth into glass. We fought hard for this planet, but fighting now is suicide. They don't want to kill us. They just want us gone. So we run?" Tom asked, his face red with anger. "No," Mark said, his voice low and steady. "We don't run. We listen. They gave us a week. That is more time than they needed to give." Mark walked to the window of the bridge. He looked down at the blue and green planet below. It was beautiful. It was home. But it was also a cage now. The galaxy had spoken. They said humanity was too wild, too dangerous. They thought by sending humanity to the empty, dark dead zone, they were sending humanity to die. Mark picked up the ship-to-ship communicator. He switched it to a global frequency, reaching every military unit and every leader on Earth. "This is Commander Mark," he said. "All forces, stand down. I repeat, stand down. Do not engage the enemy. We are not going to fight today. Instead, we are going to pack." Over the next few days, the world changed. Panic usually followed bad news, but this time, there was something else. There was a cold, hard focus. The people of Earth heard the alien's words. They heard the disgust in the alien voice. The Council thought humans were chaotic. The Council thought humans were trash. That insult cut deeper than any weapon. Everywhere on the planet, factories stopped making cars and phones. They started making engines. Construction crews stopped building malls. They started repairing every spaceship that could hold air. Farmers harvested crops early, loading them into massive cargo containers. There were no riots. There were no fights. There was only a singular, shared goal. If the galaxy didn't want them, fine. They would leave. But they would leave on their own terms. At the main spaceport, crowds gathered. Millions of people stood in long, quiet lines. They carried small bags. They left behind their houses, their furniture, and their history. They took only what they could carry. An old woman named Sarah stood in line, holding onto the hand of her grandson, David. "Grandma, where will we live?" David asked, looking up at her. Sarah looked toward the sky, where the alien ships hovered like vultures. She squeezed David's hand. "We will live, David. That is all that matters. The stars are big. We will find a new place. Humans are strong. We are like weeds. You can try to throw us away, but we will grow anywhere." On the bridge of the Ares, Mark and Lisa coordinated the evacuation. It was a logistical nightmare, but it was working. The human fleet was forming. It wasn't pretty. It was a patchwork of mining vessels, cruise liners, and old battleships. But it was the largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen. "The last transport is docking, Commander," Lisa reported. "The President and the Council leaders are aboard. They wanted to say goodbye to the planet from orbit." Mark nodded. "Good. Tell the fleet to prepare for warp jump. Set coordinates for the edge of the galaxy." He looked at the tactical display. The alien council ships were moving aside. They were opening a path. They were watching, waiting for the humans to beg, to cry, or to collapse. But as the human engines roared to life, there was no begging. There was only the sound of power. "Sir," Tom said from the navigation station. "The alien flagship is hailing us. It is Counselor Vane. He wants to know if we accept our exile." Mark looked at the communication panel. He didn't answer it. He didn't need to. He walked to the front of the bridge. The massive thrusters of the Ares ignited, shaking the floor beneath his feet. Slowly, the great ship began to rise. Around it, hundreds of other ships joined the formation. "Take us out, Tom," Mark ordered. The fleet moved upward. They passed the alien ships. The alien crews watched their screens with confusion. The humans were not looking at them. The humans were not firing. They were just leaving. As the Earth shrank in the distance, Mark watched it on the screen. He saw the clouds, the oceans, and the continents. He felt a pain in his chest. It was the pain of losing a part of his soul. But he did not let the tears fall. He stood tall. "Commander," Lisa said softly. "We are leaving the solar system." Mark turned his back on the screen. He looked at his crew. They were all watching him. They were scared, but they were ready. "Good," Mark said. "Let us go. We don't belong here anymore. The galaxy thinks we are a virus. Let us show them what a virus does when you give it space to grow." The fleet jumped into warp speed. The stars stretched into lines of light. The solar system vanished behind them. Humanity had been kicked out of its home. The council thought it was the end. They thought they were throwing humans into a graveyard. But Mark knew the truth. This wasn't the end. It was a new beginning. They were going to the dead zone. It was dark, it was cold, and it was empty. But it was theirs. And as the silence of space wrapped around the fleet, humanity made a silent promise. They would return one day. But they wouldn't come back to ask for permission. They would come back because they wanted to. Until then, they would not look back. The jump to the dead zone felt like an eternity. When the ships finally dropped out of warp speed, the silence was heavier than anything they had left behind. There were no stars here. The dead zone was a vast, dark nebula at the very edge of the galaxy. It was a place where gravity went wrong and radiation storms burned constantly. The Galactic Council had sent them here to die, thinking that the chaotic environment would destroy the human fleet within a year. But as the dust settled on the view screens of the command ship, Admiral James stood tall. He looked at the swirling purple and black clouds outside and did not see death. He saw a forge. "This place is ugly," Engineer Tom said, wiping grease from his forehead. He looked at the monitors which flashed red with warning lights. "The radiation levels are off the charts. The engines can barely handle the gravitational pulls." James nodded slowly. "It is ugly, Tom. But it is also quiet. No one is watching us. No one is telling us what to do. The council thinks we will die out here because we cannot survive without their rules. They think we need order." "We have order," Lisa said from the communications station. Her face was pale, but her eyes were bright. "We have each other. That is more than the council ever had. The first months were the hardest. The dead zone lived up to its name. Food supplies ran low, and the radiation made many people sick. But humans are stubborn. They did not sit down and cry. They worked." Scientist Alice set up a laboratory in the cargo bay of the flagship. She spent her days studying the radiation that the council feared so much. She took samples of the nebula gas and tested it on human cells. "What are you finding?" Alice James asked her one day, walking into her busy lab. The air smelled of ozone and chemicals. Alice looked up from her microscope, her eyes wide with excitement. "It is strange, Admiral. The radiation here is chaotic. It changes constantly. On Earth, this would kill us. But look at this." She pointed to a screen showing a cell multiplying. "Our cells are adapting. The radiation isn't killing the tissue. It is making it stronger. The human DNA is rewriting itself. We are changing, James. We are evolving to fit the void." James felt a chill go down his spine. The council banished humanity because they were unpredictable. But in banishing them to this place, the council had made them even more unpredictable. "If we survive this," James said, "we will not be the same humans who left Earth." "We will be better," Alice replied simply. Meanwhile, Engineer Tom was working on the ships. He realized that the standard engines used by the Galactic Council were useless here. They were too precise. They needed order to function. The dead zone was messy. Tom began to tinker with the core engines. He took them apart and rebuilt them using rough, heavy metals mined from nearby asteroids. He replaced the smooth flow of energy with pulses. "It is like a heartbeat," Tom explained to Lisa as she watched him weld a massive conduit. "The galaxy breathes in rhythm. The Council uses that rhythm. But here, there is no rhythm. So, I made an engine that beats like a drum. It punches through the noise." When Tom turned the modified engine on, the ship didn't just hum. It roared. The ship moved faster than it ever had in normal space. It dodged the gravity wells of the dead zone like a dancer. Admiral James watched the progress with a stoic face. He had sent a message to the fleet, Project Silent Forge. The goal was simple. Hide. Adapt. Prepare. The Council was still watching from a distance, using long-range sensors to see if the humans were dead yet. James knew he had to trick them. "We need to hide our heat signatures," James told his officers. "We need to make this fleet look like floating rocks. We cannot use radio waves. We cannot use standard scanners." Lisa had an idea. "The nebula gas interferes with sensors. What if we use it? What if we cover the ships in the dust from the asteroids? And what if we communicate using light lasers?" It was brilliant. Over the next 5 years, the human fleet transformed. The sleek, shiny ships became jagged and dark, covered in rock and dust to blend in with the dead zone. They stopped using radios. Instead, they used tight beam lasers that were invisible to the Council's technology. They became ghosts. The people changed, too. The radiation made them tougher. Their skin became slightly paler to handle the lack of sunlight, but their muscles became denser. They didn't need as much sleep. They could focus for days without stopping. Children born in the dead zone opened their eyes and seemed to understand the darkness immediately. One day, a young pilot named David was flying a patrol mission. He was flying a ship modified by Tom's new designs. He saw a massive gravitational wave heading toward the main colony. An old mining ship, slow and heavy, was in its path. "Admiral, I have a problem," David said over the laser comm. His voice was calm. "A gravity wave is going to hit the mining colony." "Can you stop it?" James asked. "I don't need to stop it," David said. "I just need to move it." David flew his small ship directly at the gravity wave. He activated the pulse engine at maximum power. The ship hit the wave and released a burst of chaotic energy. The wave didn't break, but it bent. It curved around the mining ship and dissipated into the void. Back on the bridge, everyone stared at the screens. "Did he just push a gravity wave?" Lisa asked, shocked. James smiled slightly. "He used the chaos of the dead zone against itself. We are learning to control this place." 10 years passed since the banishment. The Galactic Council had not heard a single word from Earth. They assumed the humans were dead. But in the dead zone, humanity was thriving. They had turned asteroids into massive fortresses. They were growing food in hydroponic bays fueled by the nebula's energy. They were building a new kind of weapon, something the Council had never seen. James sat in his command chair, watching the dark nebula swirl. He received a report from Alice. She had found a way to store the chaotic radiation in a battery. It was a bomb of pure energy, but it was unstable. "It is ready," Alice said. "But we must be careful. It eats order. If we fire this at a Council ship, it will ignore their shields because their shields are based on order. It will pass right through and tear the ship apart." James nodded. "Save it? We are not going to attack the Council. Not yet. but we will be ready if they come for us. Suddenly, the alarm on the bridge blared. It was a signal they had set up a decade ago, but they never thought they would hear it. "Admiral!" Lisa shouted, "I am picking up a signal. It is not from inside the dead zone. It is from the galactic center. It is on the old emergency frequency." James stood up. "Put it on the screen." The screen flickered. The image was grainy, filled with static. But the voice was clear. It was a voice of panic, of fear. It was Counselor Vane. "Earth Fleet, this is the Galactic Council, please respond. We need help. Something is coming. They are destroying everything. Please, if anyone is alive, help us." The bridge was dead silent. The people who had been thrown away like trash were now being begged for help. The irony hung in the air like smoke. The aliens who thought humans were a virus were now begging for the virus to save them. James looked at Tom, then at Lisa. They all waited for his order. They all remembered the humiliation of the exile. They remembered the coldness of the alien voice. "Admiral," Tom asked, "what do we do?" James looked at the message from the council. He looked at the map of the dead zone, their new home. They had worked hard to survive here. They had built a new life. They were stronger, faster, and smarter than the humans who left Earth. "They cast us out," James said, his voice cold. "They sent us here to die. They didn't want us." "But they are dying," Alice said softly. "If we don't go, the entire galaxy could fall. Including us, eventually." James looked at the stars outside. The dead zone was safe, but it was small. The galaxy was big. He realized that they could not stay hidden forever. The darkness was coming for the council, and soon it would come for the dead zone. But they would not go as saviors. They would not go to rescue the people who hated them. "Prepare the fleet," James ordered. "We are leaving the dead zone." A cheer went up from the crew. They wanted revenge. They wanted to show the council what they had become. "But listen to me carefully," James said, silencing them. "We are not going there to save them. We are going there to save ourselves. And when we are done, we are not coming back here. We are going to find a place where no one knows our name. We fight because we have to, not because we are nice." The fleet began to move. The engines roared to life, shaking the dark dust of the asteroids off their hulls. The ghost ships of the dead zone turned toward the light of the galactic center. They were no longer the refugees the council remembered. They were the monsters of the dark, and they were coming to answer the call. The journey out of the dead zone was not fast. The human fleet moved silently through the darkness, their ships invisible to standard sensors. They were like a pack of wolves hunting in the night. Inside the command ship, the atmosphere was tense but focused. No one spoke of saving the Galactic Council. They spoke of tactics and survival. Admiral James stood on the bridge, watching the stars blur as they approached the brighter, inner regions of the galaxy. The dead zone was behind them now, a dark memory. Ahead lay the home of their enemies. "Report," James said. Lisa looked up from her screen. "We are entering the outer rim. Long-range scanners are picking up the debris field. It is massive." The screen flickered, showing an image of a once beautiful star system. Now, it was a graveyard. Destroyed ships floated in the void, twisted and broken. Planets were scorched black. The silent fleet, the mysterious enemy the council feared, had passed through here like a storm. "The council ships," Tom said, his voice quiet. They didn't stand a chance. They rely on order, James replied. They use standard formations, standard shields. The enemy clearly knows how to break order. That is why they are afraid. That is why they called us. Suddenly, a message came through. It was not a laser beam this time, but a wide broadcast radio signal. It was desperate. This is Counselor Vane of the Galactic Council, the voice crackled. To the human fleet, if you are there, please respond. The enemy is at the gates of the capital. We cannot hold them. Our weapons are useless. We surrender. We beg for assistance. James looked at the communication officer. Open a channel. Audio only. The channel clicked open. James spoke calmly. This is Admiral James of the human fleet. We hear you, Counselor. You banished us. You sent us to die. Why should we help you now? There was a long pause on the other end. When Vane spoke again, his voice was shaking. Because, we were wrong. The enemy, they are called the silencers. They consume energy. They feed on the structure of our technology. We thought you were chaotic and dangerous. But now, chaos is the only thing that can save us. Please. We will give you anything. We will lift the banishment. We will give you planets. We will give you status. Just come and fight for us. James laughed softly. It was a cold sound. We do not want your planets. We do not want your status. And we do not need you to lift the banishment. We lifted it ourselves when we left the dead zone. Then what do you want? Vane cried out. We want you to stay out of our way, James said. We are coming. But we are not coming as your saviors. We are coming to destroy the silencers because they are a threat to us. If we win, we leave. If you get in our way, we will treat you like the enemy. We understand, Vane whispered. Thank you. Don't thank us yet, James said, cutting the link. The fleet accelerated. As they neared the galactic center, the lights of the battle became visible. It was a terrifying sight. A massive, cloud-like entity hovered over the Council's home world. It was pitch black, darker than space, sucking in the light around it. Thousands of small drone ships swarmed out from it, attacking the Council's golden ships. The silencers, Alice said, staring at the screen in horror. I read about these in the old archives. They are extragalactic. They move from galaxy to galaxy, eating all the energy until there is nothing left but cold dust. They are ugly, Tom spat. And they are ruining the neighborhood. Battle stations, James ordered. Tom, charge the pulse engines to full. Alice, get the chaos bombs ready. We are going to ram right through the middle of their formation. The human fleet dropped out of warp speed directly in the center of the battle. The Council ships, seeing the jagged, dark human vessels appear, panicked. They moved aside, clearing a path. The silencers turned their attention to the new arrivals. They sent a wave of energy drones toward the human ships. Let them come, James said calmly. The silencer drones fired their standard energy beams. Usually, these beams would tear through a Council ship's shields instantly. But when they hit the human ships, something strange happened. The shields on the human ships were not uniform. They fluctuated. They pulsed. The energy beams hit the shields and were scattered, distorted by the chaotic frequency. The beams passed harmlessly into space. It works. Lisa shouted. Our adaptation in the dead zone makes us immune to their standard weapons. "Fire the pulse cannons," James commanded. The human ships roared. They didn't fire clean, precise laser beams like the aliens. They fired balls of unstable, raw energy. These pulses slammed into the silencer drones. The drones didn't just explode, they disintegrated. The chaotic energy broke the bonds that held the silencer technology together. One by one, the drones were wiped out. On the ground, James said to the ground force leader, "David, deploy the teams. We need to hit the main entity before it drains the planet dry." Down on the planet, the situation was chaos. The Council's beautiful cities were burning. The sky was dark. The silencers were feeding on the planet's core. In the middle of a ruined plaza, a squad of human soldiers appeared. They wore heavy armor that looked rough and patched, but it glowed with a faint purple light. They were led by Lieutenant Sarah. She held a massive rifle that hummed with power. She looked around at the tall, skinny aliens running in panic. "Get back!" Sarah yelled at the aliens. "Let us work." The aliens cowered behind a fallen statue. They had never seen soldiers like these. The humans moved with a strange, jerky speed. They didn't march in step. They moved independently, like a pack of predators. They fired their weapons at the tentacles of the silencer that were reaching down from the sky. The tentacles smoked and retracted. "Move up!" Sarah shouted. "We need to plant the chaos bomb at the energy conduit." They ran through the battlefield. Explosions rocked the ground around them, but none of the humans fell. The radiation from the dead zone had toughened their skin and bones. They could survive impacts that would kill a council soldier. They reached the center of the city, where a massive black crystal was pulsing. It was the anchor point for the silencer entity above. "The crystal is shielded," a soldier named Mark yelled. "Not for long," Sarah said. She pulled a device from her backpack. It was a small box covered in wires. Alice had made it. "Fire at the base. Create a disturbance." The soldiers fired their pulse rifles at the ground around the crystal. The explosions shook the earth, cracking the pavement. Sarah threw the device. It landed right next to the crystal and activated. There was no loud boom. Instead, the air seemed to shimmer. The device released a wave of anti-order. It was a frequency that made structured matter fall apart. The black crystal began to crack. It shrieked, a high-pitched sound that made the aliens cover their ears. High above in space, Admiral James watched as the massive cloud entity shuddered. "David did it," he said. "The anchor is breaking. Hit them with everything we have." The human fleet fired a massive barrage of chaos energy. It struck the main body of the silencer entity. Without its anchor on the ground, it could not stabilize itself. The chaotic energy ripped it apart. The cloud dissolved, fading into nothingness. Silence fell over the battlefield. The council ships were floating, stunned. They looked at their sensors, unable to believe what they saw. The threat that had terrified them for a century was gone. Destroyed in minutes by the people they had exiled. Counselor Vane's face appeared on the screen again. He was crying. You did it. You saved us. The galaxy is saved. Oh, thank you, humans. We were wrong to fear you. You are heroes. Come back to the capital. We will prepare a celebration. We will welcome you back with open arms. We will give you the honor you deserve." James watched Vane speak. He saw the relief, but he also saw the calculation in the alien's eyes. Vane was already thinking about how to control the humans now that the danger was over. He was thinking about how to use this hero status to make humans serve the Council again. "Did you hear that?" Admiral Tom asked. "They want to give us a medal." James turned his back on the screen. "Set a course for the Rubicon. We are going home to the dead zone." "What?" Tom asked, confused. "But Admiral, we won. They are offering us everything. We can live on good planets again. We can be part of the galaxy." James looked at his crew. "Look at this ship, Tom. Look at yourselves. Do we belong on those good planets anymore? We have changed. We breathe different air now. We think different thoughts. The galaxy hasn't changed. They still fear what they don't understand. If we go back there, they will try to tame us again. They will try to put us in a cage." "But the dead zone is empty," Lisa said. "It is dark." "It is free," James said firmly. "And that is worth more than all the medals in the galaxy." He walked to the communication console. "Counselor Vane. Do not prepare a celebration. We are not coming down." "What?" Vane asked, shocked. "But, you must. You are part of the Council now. You are saviors." "No," James said. "We are not saviors. We are just survivors. We killed the silencers because they were annoying us. That is all. Do not contact us again. If you enter the dead zone, we will not be as friendly as we were today. You cannot leave us." Vane shouted. "We need your strength. We have many enemies." "That is your problem," James said. "Goodbye, Counselor." James cut the link. The human fleet turned away from the burning planet and the grateful aliens. They pointed their noses back toward the dark edge of the galaxy. "Engage hyperdrive," James ordered. The stars stretched into lines. The human fleet vanished, leaving the Galactic Council behind, safe, but forever in the shadow of what they had thrown away. The Council thought they had won, but they had lost the only thing that could have truly made them great. They were alone in their orderly, boring galaxy, while humanity raced toward the unknown. The journey back to the dead zone was quiet. The human fleet moved through the stars like a group of whales returning to the deepest part of the ocean. Inside the ships, the soldiers and engineers did not cheer. They did not celebrate their victory over the silencers. They simply cleaned their weapons and checked the engines. For them, the battle was just a job that needed to be done. They were not heroes in their own minds. They were just survivors who refused to die. Admiral James stood on the bridge, looking out at the fading light of the galactic center. He felt tired. The decision to turn away from the Council was not an easy one, but he knew it was the only one. He remembered the look on Counselor Vane's face. It was a look of relief mixed with greed. The Council wanted to use humanity as a shield, a tool to protect their perfect, ordered lives. But James knew that tools eventually get replaced or thrown away. "Report on the fleet, Lisa," James said. Lisa did not look up from her screen. Her fingers moved quickly across the keys. "All ships accounted for, Admiral. We sustained minor damage to the outer hulls. The pulse engines are running hot, but Engineer Tom says they can take it. Morale is high, but strange." "Strange?" James asked. "People are asking questions," Lisa said. "They wonder why we saved them if we hate them so much. They wonder if we made a mistake." James walked over to her station. "We didn't save them because we care about them. We saved them because the silencers were a threat to us, too. If the silencers had finished eating the council, they would have come for the dead zone next. We fought to protect our future, Lisa. Never forget that. I know, Admiral, Lisa said softly. But the galaxy will see us differently now. We are not just exiles anymore. We are legends. We are monsters who saved the gods. Let them think what they want, James said. We are going home. As the fleet approached the dead zone, the familiar purple and black clouds welcomed them. It was a dark, ugly place compared to the bright stars of the council. But to the humans, it was beautiful. It was silent. No one judged them here. No one told them they were chaotic or dangerous. As they settled back into their asteroid bases, life began to return to normal. But James knew that normal had changed. The humans had tasted real combat. They had seen the weakness of the Galactic Council. And now, they were bored. One afternoon, engineer Tom called James to the engine room. When James arrived, Tom was covered in grease, working on a large, strange device. It looked like a giant cannon, but it glowed with a soft, eerie light. "What is this?" James asked. Tom wiped his hands on a rag and grinned. "It is a new idea, Admiral. When we were fighting the silencers, I noticed something. Their technology was very efficient. But our chaos pulses were more efficient. I started thinking, if we can use chaos to destroy, can we use it to build?" James looked at the machine. "Build what?" "Build a bridge," Tom said. "The dead zone is at the edge of the galaxy. But beyond that, there is nothing but empty space for millions of light years. But what if there is something else? I think we can modify the warp engines to jump further than ever before. We can leave the galaxy entirely." James raised an eyebrow. "Leave the galaxy? You want us to be exiles twice?" "Why not?" Tom asked. "The council is scared of us now. They will leave us alone for a while. But eventually, they will get greedy again. They will try to steal our technology. Or they will fear us and try to attack us first. If we stay here, we are always waiting for them. If we go out there, we are free. Truly free." James thought about this. He looked around the engine room. He saw the young engineers working. They were strong, smart, and fearless. They didn't belong in a cage, even a cage made of stars. "Work on it, Tom," James said. "But keep it quiet. We don't want the council to know." Weeks turned into months. The humans worked harder than ever before. They mined the asteroids for rare metals. They upgraded their ships with the new technology Tom had invented. They were not just building weapons anymore, they were building a civilization. The dead zone was no longer a graveyard. It was a fortress. Meanwhile, in the galactic center, things were changing. The news of the human victory spread like fire. The council species were confused. They had been told that humans were primitive and violent. But they had seen the humans save them. They started to ask questions. They started to wonder why the council had banished such a powerful race. Counselor Vane was worried. He sat in his high tower, watching the reports. His advisors were nervous. "The people are restless, Counselor," one advisor said. "They are asking about the humans. Some want to invite them back, others want to build more ships to defend against them." Vane slammed his fist on the table. "No. We do not invite them back. They are dangerous. You saw how they fought. They do not follow rules. If we let them back into the council, they will destroy our way of life. We must keep them away." But what if they attack us? The advisor asked. They defeated the silencers easily. We cannot stop them. Vane looked at a star map. He saw the dead zone, marked with the red X. They will not attack us. They had the chance to take over, and they left. They just want to be left alone. As long as we stay out of the dead zone, we are safe. We will increase the patrols at the border. We will make sure no one goes near them. Vane was right, but he was also wrong. The humans did not want to attack the council. But they didn't want to stay in the dead zone forever either. One day, James called a meeting of all the ship captains. They gathered in the large mess hall of the command ship. The room was buzzing with energy. James stood at the front of the room. He looked at the faces of his friends. Sarah, the ground leader, was there. David, the young pilot, was there. Lisa and Tom stood by his side. Friends, James began. 10 years ago, we were kicked out of our home. We were sent here to die. But we didn't die. We got stronger. We fought a war that wasn't ours, and we won. The council thinks we are hiding in the dark, afraid of the light. The captains cheered. But, James continued, raising his hand. We are not hiding. We are waiting. We have built a new life here. But we have learned something important. We are too big for the dead zone. We are too big for the council. The galaxy is shrinking for us. The room went quiet. Everyone waited to hear what he would say next. Tom has found a way to leave the galaxy, James said. There is a universe out there beyond the stars. It is dark and empty, or maybe it is full of things we can't imagine. But it is ours. No council. No rules. Just us. The captains looked at each other. They saw the fear in some eyes, but mostly they saw excitement. We are leaving, James said. We are going to pack everything we have. We are going to take our fortresses, our ships, and our people. And we are going to say goodbye to the Milky Way galaxy forever. The cheering was so loud it shook the walls of the ship. It was not a cheer of anger. It was a cheer of freedom. They were going to explore the unknown. They were going to become something that no other race had ever been. The preparations began immediately. The humans did not waste time. They stripped the dead zone of every resource. They dismantled their bases and loaded them onto the massive colony ships. They took the blueprints for their weapons and their engines. They took the history of Earth, stored on data drives. For a few days, the Council sensors picked up massive activity in the dead zone. Admiral, Lisa called out. The Council is hailing us. They are asking what we are doing. They say their long-range scanners show we are charging up for a massive jump. James smiled. Put them on. Counselor Vane's face appeared on the screen. He looked old and tired. Admiral James, what are you doing? Your energy readings are off the charts. Are you planning to attack? We warn you, the Council fleet is on high alert. Relax, Vane, James said. We are not attacking you. We are leaving. Leaving? Vane asked, confused. Leaving where? You are already at the edge. We are leaving the galaxy, Vane, James said. We are going into the deep void. You don't need to worry about us anymore. You can have your precious order. You can have your boring little galaxy. Vane stared at him. But, you can't just leave. The unknown out there, it is death. You will die. James laughed. We are humans, Vane. We don't die easily. Goodbye. James cut the signal before Vane could say another word. He looked at Tom. "Is the drive ready?" Tom nodded, his eyes shining with excitement. "It is ready, Admiral. Calculations are set for nowhere. We are jumping into the dark." James took his seat on the bridge. He looked out the window at the distant stars of the Milky Way. It was a beautiful cage, but it was still a cage. He wasn't sad to leave. He felt lighter than he had in years. "All ships," James said over the fleet channel. "This is the Admiral. Today, we make history. Engage." The fleet jumped. It wasn't a normal jump. The space around them didn't just stretch, it tore open. The ships vanished from the dead zone in a flash of blinding white light. They were gone. The Milky Way was silent once again. The Council was safe, but they had lost the only thing that made the galaxy interesting. Humanity was gone, and they were never coming back. The white light faded, leaving the fleet floating in a darkness that was different from anything they had ever known. The Milky Way was gone. Behind them, there was only a tiny, distant swirl of light that looked like a grain of dust. Ahead of them, there was nothing. No stars, no nebulae, no planets. Just the endless, silent void of intergalactic space. It was terrifyingly empty. Admiral James stood on the bridge of the Pioneer. He stared out the window at the absolute blackness. For a moment, the silence was so heavy that he could hear his own heartbeat. The crew sat frozen at their stations, waiting for something to happen. But nothing did. The ship just floated there, drifting in the void. "Report," James said, his voice sounding loud in the quiet. Lisa typed on her console, her fingers trembling slightly. "Sir, we made it. We are completely out of the galaxy. The long-range sensors show nothing. Just empty space for millions of light years." "Are we lost?" Tom asked, looking up from the engineering station. "Because it looks like we drove off a cliff." James smiled a small, grim smile. "We are not lost, Tom. We are free. This is what we wanted. No council, no borders. Just us and the unknown." "It is very dark," Sarah said softly. She stood near the back of the bridge, her arms crossed. She had fought on the ground against the silencers, but this vast emptiness felt more dangerous than any army. "Are we really going to live out here?" "We are going to make it our home," James said firmly. "Alice, start scanning. If there is nothing, then we will build something." The days that followed were strange. The fleet moved slowly through the void, conserving fuel. The mood on the ships was mixed. Some people felt a deep sense of peace. They were away from the wars, away from the politics, and away from the aliens who had judged them. They felt like they could finally breathe. Others felt scared. They looked at the blackness and saw a cage with no walls. David, the young pilot, spent his time in the observation deck. He sat for hours, just watching the darkness. One day, James found him there. "What do you see, David?" James asked, sitting down next to him. David thought for a while. "I see potential, Admiral. When we were in the dead zone, we had to hide. We had to survive. But out here, there is no one to hide from. We can be as loud as we want. We can build as big as we want. We don't have to worry about the Council attacking us." James nodded. "Exactly. The galaxy wanted to get rid of us because they thought we were chaotic. They thought we would ruin their perfect order. But order is weak. It breaks. Chaos is adaptable. It survives. We are going to prove them right, but not in the way they expected. We are going to build a new galaxy, David said. A human galaxy. Yes, James said. A galaxy of monsters. But a happy one. Meanwhile, back in the Milky Way, the Galactic Council was in turmoil. Counselor Vane sat in his office, watching the spot where the humans had vanished. The reports were coming in. The dead zone was empty. The asteroid bases were gone. The human fleet had truly left. They are gone, one of the advisors said, sounding sad. They really left us. Vane felt a strange mix of relief and loss. He was relieved that the dangerous humans were no longer a threat to his power. The council was safe again. They could go back to their meetings, their rules, and their slow, boring lives. But deep down, he knew that something special had left the galaxy. The humans had brought a spark, a wild energy that the galaxy needed. Are they dead? Another advisor asked. Surely they cannot survive in the void. They are not dead, Vane said, feeling old. They are humans. They are like cockroaches. They can survive anywhere. They are probably building a city right now in the middle of nothing. Should we pursue them? The advisor asked. We could send a fleet to bring them back. No. Vane shouted. We do not go after them. We let them go. We made our choice. We banished them. If we go looking for them now, they might not be as friendly as they were during the war. They might just decide to conquer us instead of save us. Vane looked at the map of the galaxy. It looked perfect. Every star was in its place. Every race was doing what they were supposed to do. But it felt cold. It felt like a museum display, beautiful but lifeless. The humans were the chaos that kept things interesting, and now they were gone. Years passed in the void. The human fleet did not just float, they worked. They found a massive, rogue gas giant floating aimlessly in the dark. It had no sun, but it radiated heat from its core. It was perfect. This is it, Tom said excitedly. We can use the hydrogen from the atmosphere for fuel. We can build platforms on the moons. The fleet stopped. For the first time in a long time, they had a destination. They named the planet New Hope, even though it was a dark, stormy world with no land. They built giant cities that hung in the clouds, tethered to the moons by massive cables. They used the technology they had stolen from the silencers and the engines they had modified in the dead zone. They created artificial gravity. They grew food in massive, glowing greenhouses. Life was hard, but it was good. The people changed. They became taller and thinner because of the low gravity. Their skin became paler because there was no sunlight. But their eyes adapted. They could see in the dark now. They could see the heat signatures of ships and the radiation of the gas giant. They were no longer just humans. They were void humans. Admiral James walked through the streets of the main city, Cloud 1. The air smelled of ozone and rain. Children ran past him, laughing. They jumped high into the air, enjoying the low gravity. They spoke a new language, a mix of English and technical terms that only they understood. Admiral. A young woman called out. It was Alice. She was older now, her hair streaked with gray, but her eyes were still bright. We have received a signal. James stopped. From the council. Have they followed us? No, Alice said. It is from further out. We were scanning the deep void like you asked. We found something. It is a beacon. An artificial signal. It is old, James. Older than the Council. Older than Earth. James felt a shiver run down his spine. Another civilization. Maybe, Alice said. Or maybe just a ghost. But it is something. We are not alone in the dark. James looked up at the artificial lights that lined the ceiling of the city. He remembered the day they left Earth. He remembered the pain of leaving their home. He remembered the feeling of being unwanted. But now, looking at these people, these strong, pale, happy void humans, he knew they had done the right thing. The Council had tried to crush them. They had tried to banish them to die. But humanity had done what it always did. They had survived. They had adapted. They had thrived. What should we do? Alice asked. Do we go investigate the beacon? James smiled. It was a smile of pure joy. Yes, Alice, we investigate. We have a whole universe to explore. The galaxy thought they could get rid of us by sending us away. They thought we would disappear. But they were wrong. By sending us away, they just made us bigger. He looked out into the darkness beyond the city walls. The void was not empty anymore. It was full of possibilities. Tell the fleet to prepare, James ordered. We are moving out. The alarm bells rang across the city. The engines roared to life. The ships disconnected from their moorings. The void humans did not look back toward the Milky Way. They did not care about the Council anymore. They did not care about the ancient wars or the people who had hated them.